Legacy of a King, a Legacy series novel by Charlene Sponsel. Chapter 8. Lili finds her place. 86th day of fall, 447. After a single cycle as Tally's betrothed, I floated down the steps of the grand staircase as if it were second nature. A fire blazed on the hearth, brightening the wood paneling, while the servants set the table with dinnerware of painted vines and fruits, lilac and sage, blue silver and linen. Kesma's mother's things that she would take with her. It's only the two of us now. Cam rested his chin on my head and wrapped an arm around my waist. Can you read everyone's mind, or just mine? I asked. Now I will have no one to tease but you. Whatever will you do? I can take it, I said, turning to him. I've tolerated you this long. He became serious, brushing a hair from my forehead and tucking it behind my ear. Father has sent me to tell you he requests your presence directly, he said in a mock official tone. Thank you, I curtsied, and snatched 2 flowers off the centerpiece on the table, receiving a jest of admonishment from a servant. Grinning at Cam's quizzical face, I rushed up the stairs. Tilly stood in his drawing room, attempting to attach his cape. I plopped a flower in each of the slender vases which sat on the tables flanking the doors to his chambers. Here, let me, I said, buttoning the cape to one shoulder. Where's your manservant? I told him I was capable, but it appears I was wrong. I stood in front of him to attach the other side. His eyes followed me, and when I finished, he laid a warm hand on mine. Thank you. Will you walk with me? I took his arm, and as we descended the grand staircase to join the rest of the family in the dining hall, I breached the silence. It will be strange having no plans after being so busy with Kesma's ceremonies. It will be lonely for you without her. You have become close, Tally said. I'm trying not to dwell on that. He pulled out my chair at the foot of the table, then seated himself. Kesma, when tomorrow do you plan to leave? I asked. Tonight, after dinner, Eosin answered for her. So soon? You've been out of seclusion less than a day. I hoped we could... My family is expecting us, Eosin said, his tone informing me that arguing was pointless. It took all my self-control not to glare at the man. He was 10 cycles Kesma's senior, but that didn't mean she needed him to speak for her. We will visit often. Your father and brother were here for the ceremonies, weren't they? Kesma asked, distracting me. She had picked up on my opinion, as she usually did. Did you have an enjoyable visit? Yes, I lied, and hoped my polite smile didn't appear fake. They spent the entire visit stressing how important it was for me to fulfill the contract. Either Sitak had requested they do so, or my father had overdrawn his accounts. Farin, you look sharp in your uniform. How is service treating you? I asked with feigned confidence. I won't be receiving any commendations. What makes you say that? They limited my assignments to distributing food to the poor, keeping order in the hospital, and maintaining peace in the city central and the marketplace. Things that suit you, Belia assured him as a mother would her child. We must care for the people. Tilly covered his daughter's hand with his. Belia always makes time for them. You would do well to learn from your sister's example. Farin didn't reply, and when gentle coaxing didn't convince him, Tilly's face became hard. Ask Sitak. War and commendation are not for you. Uncle Sitak fought in the war, and people respect his part in it, Farin countered in a rare display of emotion, violet shading springing to life. Respect and fear are not the same things, Tilly's voice boomed. The war may have made him strong, but it destroyed the brother I knew. Silence pervaded the room, and, wanting to help breach their impasse, I said, Your duties must suit you. I've never seen you so relaxed and confident. Thank you. Farin's regard for me ran in the indifferent category. It didn't bother me, because his commission permitted him little time at the castle, but I no longer took a kind word for granted. Belia cast a disapproving glance at Farin. This was pleasant, Father. Thank you for arranging such a splendid evening. Lili did it, and she planned every other we have enjoyed since she came here, Cam corrected her, and heat washed over me as everyone except Belia looked in my direction. We should do it more often, she continued, as if he hadn't said anything. Would you like that, Father? We can have dinner every week as before, Belia offered. Tilly acknowledged the comment, but his attention focused on me. Is this true? Not having wanted any credit and worried I had overstepped, I answered by dipping my head. It is time I granted you responsibilities. You may take over managing the kitchen and menu, if you wish, but if Belia has enough to occupy her time, and you have done an excellent job. And yes, he said to Belia, once a week family dinner would be wonderful. Belia fisted her hands and her jaw tightened. I suppose anyone can plan this kind of thing. Servants cleared the table after dinner, packed the dishes in Kesma's trunks, and took them to the waiting carriage. She hugged her father and siblings first, then me. Thank you for everything. I did nothing. You've been my friend and I needed one. I'm not the easiest person, I chuckled to hide my sadness. You gave us our father back. I can't take credit for that. He's not as he once was. He is present, which wouldn't be true if not for you. You gave up much to help us. It's a hard road you have accepted with grace. She kissed me on the cheek and exited the castle on Ayasen's arm. No one had shown me such affection for a long time. While the family took their leave, I stayed to speak with the cook, mesmerized by flames licking at an untouched log in the fireplace. Iliota, Tali's voice was soft but profound. Will you speak with me a moment? I was taller, but I still stood below his chin. My milky white skin shimmered in the firelight with the iridescence indicative of my people. Thank you for the patience you exhibited over the last cycle. You went beyond the mandate assigned to you, doting upon me and befriending my children, asking nothing for yourself. I don't know how else I should have behaved. That makes you unique. Varin understood it from the first. He studied the image above the mantel, the portrait of his family painted when the children were young and Varin was healthy. She always said Cam is like me, but I see her in him, and he sees the same qualities in you that drew her to you. I see them too, he said, and slipped from the room. Varin's presence dominated the castle, as if she were there, keeping vigil over us from the likenesses displayed on the walls. But Tali didn't speak of her. I'd viewed the painting often since the day of Varin's interment. The talented painter captured something Tali had lost, but I couldn't put a name to it. Sleep evaded me that night as I stared into the rich red canopy of my bed. I couldn't let go of one question. Had I tried to befriend Belia? Zuri, you were Belia's bedmate until she united with the steel, right? Yes, miss. Why do you ask? You were for a long time? Since she came here as a child. I've tried to gain her friendship, but all she has shown me is growing disdain and hostility. She's always kind to Mia. She adores you. It can't be my lack of title. Maybe because I don't deserve one? Mia and the princess bonded because Mia is a font of social information and has been Her Highness's handmaid since she was a child. What about you? She came to Alonji with the king despite the upheaval of the war, while the queen remained on her family's estate with the other children. Rebels kidnapped the princess as part of a failed grab for power, and the queen blamed herself since she allowed the princess to go with the king. It was a significant source of tension between them. The king obtained the princess's freedom after a quarter cycle and sent her to stay with her mother and siblings. I became her bedmate when she returned to the castle. Your presence must still lend her a sense of security. I suppose. She has been outspoken on the protection of Algin, which endears her to many of us. But she keeps people at a distance and has trouble trusting them. I can't blame her. The king and queen must have been insane with worry. She was never the same. You have lessons in the stable garden in the morning, miss. You'd best rest. The stable garden was my least favorite, as the wind often blew from the direction of the barn, bringing with it the stench of horse sweat and manure, despite it being the cleanest in Alonji. An old talus tree stood in the corner with its white, craggy trunk, as if winter had drained it of color. I wanted to be a queen the people would be proud of, accomplished and knowledgeable. The blanket darkened where I swiped my hand over it. I pulled my fingers through it in the opposite direction, making squiggly, lighter-colored lines. The truth remained, I would rather be kind than intelligent, and I determined it as if given a choice to reject one over the other. Maybe you will be a better pupil when I'm gone, and the instructors have no one else to keep them occupied, Cam said. What? I glanced around the garden. We were alone. I must be a great disappointment. They need a challenge. Cam helped me from the ground. This will be one of our last sessions outdoors, he said, as a chilly breeze nipped at our skin that the noon sun couldn't thwart. It surrounded us with a tart tang of winter vine fruits, which had flowered early, indicating a severe winter ahead. The stead trees were shedding their leaves, and most of the tallows were red. Only the ever trees across the river kept their The stead trees were shedding their leaves, and most of the tallows were red. Only the ever trees across the river kept their green color. I need your help with something, I said as a ferry-on scooped a fish from the lazy river. It flew to the top of a leafless tree and tore at its flesh. You don't say, he mocked me, smacking his forehead with his hand. Then he finger-combed the shaggy mop of hair from his face. What is it now? You want to fly? Build a bridge? Ha ha, I said flatly. I want you to help me earn Bilia's trust. He laughed. I'm serious, Cam. That's what makes it so funny. It is an impossible task. You know that, don't you? I'm not her favorite brother either. I stared at him and mouthed, Please. Fine, but stop looking at me with that pitiful grin. I clapped softly, and he shook his head. She loves compliments, and is loyal to my father and Kanika above all else. Convince her your priorities are the same, and you should be golden. But they are. Why would she think otherwise? I said should. She hates dishonesty and deception. As I said, I'm not her favorite. She recognizes only my father as her equal, which was true even of our mother. That is where your complication lies. She won't be your superior for long. You'll both be queen eventually. You won't be a ruling member of the sovereignty and hence are no political threat. But it's the reason you may never accomplish much. As I made my way back to the castle and my chambers, I ran into Distill in the hall, both forefingers gripped by his toddler's pudgy hands. Hello, I bent to his level and ran my fingers through his baby-fine blonde hair. Did you lose your nanny, Willick? Distill's mouth stretched out, showing his crooked teeth. Yes, she and Belia disagreed about Prissy. He reconsidered offering any detail on the argument. Her handmaid is pulling double duty and not taking it too well. We have it covered, though, don't we, Willick? Belia interrupted, a squalling baby in her arms. Take her before we have no servants. I'm happy to help if you need. That will not be necessary, she said to Distill and handed him the infant. If you change your mind, you know where to find me. I love your gown, Belia. The colors compliment you. Now, Prissy, you've upset your mother. Distill made a face to stop her fussing, to no avail. Her tiny arms flapped as she screamed, but Distill cradled her against his chest. An Indian girl. Amethyst highlights already threaded her blonde locks. She would be spoiled. I will find another nanny as soon as I can. Distill bent to pick up his son and escaped with a child on each arm. What do you want? She scowled at me. Can't we manage civility for your father's sake? I always do what is best for my father. You are not. She pushed past me. I continued down the hall to my quarters and slouched in a chair, frustrated by the phenomenal failure of my efforts. What's the matter, Lili? I figured you'd be in high spirits with the king feeling better. Mia batted her eyelashes, awaiting praise for the news. What do you mean? I've heard nothing about him being ill. The doctor was here earlier. He asked the king if his headaches had returned. Mia wrung her fingers, sensing she had made a mistake. She had been eavesdropping again. And? The king said they hadn't. Did he say what caused them? Or what fixed them? No, she said, putting away clothes. Why would he keep them a secret? Don't you know anything? Mia said, suddenly irritated. The king has enemies. He can't show them weakness. Would grief make him sick? I've seen people lovesick. It's the same thing, isn't it? I suppose if one is sick enough, they might die. My mother died soon after my father, and there wasn't much wrong with her. I'm sorry, Mia. How old were you? 8. You've never been in love, Lili, she said, as if it made me deficient. Have you? I asked, though I doubted the answer would be an honest one. Once, before you arrived. What happened? He's still around, she said in a neutral tone unnatural to her. And I don't want to talk about it. Since when? I laughed. Mia always wanted to talk about anything, especially things she shouldn't. I hear King Tilly put you in charge of the kitchen. Come on, Mia. Who was he? Cam? Hardly, she scoffed. but expecting anything other than a casual flirtation with Kamek Major would be foolish. He cares for only himself. Mia slammed the door to the servants' hall as she departed.